So my name is Anthony Escobedo. I'm the leader / host for today's meeting and the technical architect over at Concurrency. And I am a technologist. I've been in consulting for 5 years and I've been in technology for 8. It's been a very exciting time. Technology is always changing, so there's always things to learn. And then I think just on top of the learning and technology curve, travel is key. So I'm not sure if you guys, you can't see my background right now. That's actually Wisconsin right now, because it snowed this morning. No, it's actually from Colorado. I went there a couple years back and I took a picture from the gondola, and it just turned out really nice. And I use that when there's some snowy days out there like today. You can see my LinkedIn there, / Escobedo Anthony, and then my Twitter. I try to post as much as I can. This weekend I was on making updates for the Power Apps that you'll see soon here today, and I was just posting some things about that. Outside of that, then I also have my personal website where I'll post some blogs and whatnot. But I try to stay active. I try to share as much as I can, but it's just something fun that I can put out there and kind of show that personal side as well, other than just being on the user group. And Steve?
Hey everyone, I'm Steve Campbell. So I'm the kind of co-leader and often been hosting a lot of these Power Platform user groups here in Milwaukee. I also work with Anthony at Concurrency, and I'm a senior data and AI consultant there. Do a lot of Power BI, do a lot of data kind of stuff, Azure. I also teach Power BI at the university here. I have a course that runs a few times a year. So in Power BI a lot, big Power BI guy, use it every day, talk about it all the time. So obviously you probably noticed originally from the UK, I've traveled and I've lived in the UK, Australia, and now actually in Milwaukee, Wisconsin of United States. Big on LinkedIn, so please connect, Power BI Steve, same as Twitter. I love to connect, I love to share a lot of what we do there. And then also blog on powerbi.tips. So if you head over to powerbi.tips, you can definitely read some of the stuff if you find it interesting and want to learn more about what I'm talking about.
Hey Steve, a couple things. So quickly, I know that you have a pretty sweet blog that you just posted recently on Power BI Tips. If you can give something about that. And then also a fun fact about you being back in the UK.
Yeah, definitely just released my latest blog. It's kind of a Power BI is part of Greater Data Solution, it's called. So really looking at Power BI, getting away from thinking Power BI is just there to extract data, just to show visuals. It's really about integrating Power BI into a data solution. It should be part of our thinking as an organization, making business insights, using it to guide our business, the bigger picture as part integration with your whole data platform. So it's not just a fancy visualization tool. It doesn't just do graphs, really looking at it at the bigger picture. And that's kind of what we're talking about today, integrating it into the Power Platform, using it as part of Teams. All these products play together very, very well. So looking at them all together. And yeah, fun fact, currently back in the United Kingdom, just for a few weeks here, just visiting some family. So, love this, being able to still come on and still present, even though me and Anthony are opposite sides of the world right now. So really awesome.
Yeah, I think that the fun part about the whole community is that you don't have to be, neighbors with one another. I mean, you can be neighboring countries and still chat as if you truly are, next door neighbors. So yeah, that's pretty exciting. Thanks for sharing that. Awesome. So we'll keep moving along here. We'll dive right into some of the content on, why we're all here today.
All right. So this is really just wanted to kind of frame this session and just really describe exactly what it is and what it is not. So today we're looking at a low-code solution, right? This is what the Power Platform is all about. We're a Power Platform user group. This is integrating the different products of the Power Platform. So really we're aiming this at kind of business users, this is an easy solution to replicate across your organization, to implement it. It's a low code solution. We don't have pages of PowerShell script. It's not about writing lots and lots of code and setting something up. This is really, do you have a current version control? Are you doing anything version control, source control with your Power BI files? If not, let's do something, right? Let's get a source control in there, version control. It's really a solution for binary files. When we say binary files, what we mean is those, Power BI desktop files. There's a lot of options, Git, TFS, which we can check in code, typically where this whole kind of development comes from. But, this is not what we're doing here. Report files, when we make a Power BI report file, it comes in a Power BI desktop file. It's a desktop file, PBIX is the extension. You can't really check in parts of it. It's one thing. So this is a solution looking at these files, how to check them in, how to keep a version control. Again, kind of cover this point, low code solution. There is other options available. We're not saying necessarily this is the gold standard. If you already are using a lot of other things, we're not saying, use this instead of that. Use what fits your organization. It's difficult to have a one size fits all. You really shouldn't. Very large organizations maybe already have their own version control set up. In my experience as a consultant, a lot of people don't, especially when it comes to business users designing Power BIX files. I kind of have this saying over at Power BI.tips. It's things like the business act like IT. What that really means is, we're opening up report development, we're opening up with a Power Platform, all these tools to people who aren't necessarily in an IT role. However, we still want to bring those IT ideas and those solutions in there. We want to have version control. We want to keep, copies and history of everything we're doing. We want to have check-ins so we can see what's being edited. So that's really the idea today.
Awesome.
And kind of why version control, right? So why do we need to do this? We want a single shared location for reports. So typically, big no is, and this happens as well with Excel files. You could use this theoretically for Excel files if you wanted as well, not just Power BI desktop files. Don't email them, right? Typically, we'll make our changes, we'll email it to someone, and then they'll email it back. We'll get very confused because, who's got the latest email version? Where is it? We don't want to do that. That's going to cause confusion. And we always want to know where the most up-to-date and where the published version is. So we don't want to have a V1, V2 at the end, put my initials at the end because we don't want to edit it. Let's get rid of all that. That adds to confusion. It makes us edit old copies. And then I've done it tons of time where I've done all this work and I've got confused. I've gone to an older version and I've done more work on there. There's no way to merge my changes now. So let's have that, single published location where our up-to-date file is, we always know. Now, this one is typically, as you start to adopt Power BI in an organization, as it gets bigger, not always at the beginning, but it definitely happens where, multiple people might be making these reports. Typically, maybe there's a couple of champions who champion Power BI, but as you grow this throughout the company, more people are going to want to make edits to the same report. So what if two people are working at the same time? So we have this thing called a checkout, right? And that's where we can check out these files and exactly say, hey, I'm working on it. No one else is allowed to work on it. And then, the other side, we want to check it back in. We say, we've done our work. Now let's commit our changes and say, add comments on this. Tell people what you did, the version history, and we can see every change. Maybe you mess up and something goes wrong and you want to roll back. That's the ability, this version history, ability to roll back and go to previous versions and undo what you've done in small incremental steps. So we don't lose a ton of work. We can just roll back certain changes. And then the other thing is, we want to work locally. That means work on our desktop, in our local machine. All changes are going to be made on copies of the files. We're not editing anything directly. So, I've done this loads before. Oops, I've deleted that table. I've deleted my fact table, and then I've saved the report accidentally. What do? It's all right. I just discard everything I've done, start again, because we're making small changes at a time on copies of a file. And we can do that. We can just say, hey, let's delete this, start again. What I've done has been wrong.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, from a version control standpoint, that's kind of like a native, SharePoint type of feature that we'd be able to take advantage of, but using it in, with the Power BI reports, it makes so much sense, especially, something that you and I were even, when we were working on our Power BI reports, just for this demo, you had me check in at certain times, or I had you check in at certain times because we weren't able to necessarily override each other's changes. And I mean, that's exactly what we were looking to do, to provide as a piece of technology here. So what I'm going to do then is share. Oh,
so yeah. So now we're obviously a great point. This is it. We often work as a team here. Anthony's Power Apps, I'm Power BI. So having this incremental, being able to bounce off each other is great. So firstly, I'm just going to kind of explain the process and explain how this is done. Then Anthony is going to show some tools that we use to automate this and to make this, one click, really, really easy to do. So basically, our big secret here is we just use SharePoint. SharePoint is great. It has all of these features built in. So really, we want to store all our files on SharePoint. And the magic is making this automatic deployment and having this process so we know who's working on what, how these are copied and checking in, checking out, kind of automating this so we don't get confused and know what's going on. So we're going to be working off today. It's going to be this. We've made a site called Power BI Exec Reports. So these are our executive reports that we've made in Power BI. So in this, you can see I go down to the document section. And we've made 3 folders. And this is typically how I like to do my check-in and check-outs. What we have is we have a published reports, going from the bottom up, documentation and checked out reports. So what published reports are, these are reports that we know are going to be published to the service. So these are the reports that are always going to be the ones which are live, that people are viewing when they go to powerbi.com. So we know these reports, these are the ones, these are the latest version, they're published there, they're up to date. What we utilize is we can see SharePoint has something called version control built in. So this here, we can see which version, we have 1 and 2, and we can actually go through, and if we go on the ellipsis next to the report and go more, we can check out this file right here at the bottom. So what checking out a file does is it will essentially lock this file. It won't let anyone else edit it, and it will stop people from being able to delete it and editing. You're saying, hey, it's checked out to me. I don't want anyone else to be making copies. Once you check it out, you can then make your edits and check it back in. And what it does, instead of just overwriting the file, SharePoint has this amazing thing called version history. If we click this ellipsis, we can see here version history. Now this is basically a snapshot of every checkout we've done. As you open up, we see this version history. Every time I make a change, instead of just overwriting the file, it's saving history of the file as we go back. And there'll be comments with each checkup. You can see check-in. This last one done at 6:57 a.m. was obviously up early working. I updated the colors. We'll probably want to get more descriptive. This was just a test with these comments, but this can show us, and then we know once we've messed something up, we can roll back. We can roll back to anything by simply clicking on a previous version and clicking restore. So that's the magic of version control and version history. Now, obviously, what I said is that we don't want to be editing these reports directly. We want to make a copy and edit them locally. So what we're going to do is we're going to run through a quick solution that we built in Power Platform. So it's using Power Automate and a Power App on how to copy these into a separate folder. And then we're going to sync up this folder to our own desktop, work on them, and then copy them back into this folder and check them in. So with that said, I'm going to hand over to Anthony, and he's going to be able to share a screen, and then he's going to run through the build we have with a Power App and the Power Automate or the Microsoft Flow.
Awesome, thank you. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. All right, so I'm back on the demo that you can see, but I'm going to open up now my browser, and you should be able to see some of that there. Just give me one moment here. I'm just going to switch some things up. All right. So now you can see I have a couple different tabs that are open. You're going to be able to see that there's a Power Apps tab that's open here. I can see my home screen, checkout file screen, check-in file screen, and then there's basically a test screen. We'll talk about, kind of what happens in there. You can kind of see some of the down here. You can even see some of the PowerPoint that's showing. That's kind of funny. Over here on the right, you're going to be able to see the different workflows that we have going on here. Let me just go back to the flows. You can see these top two are our most important ones there. You can see that SharePoint documents library that we were looking through earlier. And then also here's that Teams that we also saw. So some of those things that you're going to be able to tie together based on what Steve had talked about during the intro to the overall summary of, kind of why we're all here today. That's what the end users typically see. But now let's talk about, when you're building that technology, what you would be able to see at that point. So I just had some fun. This wasn't for a client. This is more for a demo. So I was able to have some fun colors in there, throw some images. I mean, a lot of times you need to do like the standard corporate look and feel, and it can still be creative. But here I just thought, I had a little bit more fun with these buttons and so forth. So bear with me as you see some funny things along the way with these different screens, and you'll see them pop up and you'll know what I'm talking about. All right, so if I were to click play, as you guys may know, you can preview the app as if you're an end user navigating to the app itself. So if I were to come here and I wanted to click on check reports out or check reports in, you're really just saying, why, where you're going to want to go to. So I would typically go to checking report out first. So I'm going to click on that button. It's going to navigate me to the screen where you're going to now be able to check out some reports. And the reason why I say some is because there's only a number of reports that you should be able to check out. So I cannot go out and check out, ones that maybe aren't checked out to me or they're already checked out. So this one I just can't check out because it's already checked out. So that one is to myself, that I just can't double check something out, and that's native to SharePoint, and it basically brings that through right into Power Apps, knowing that it's already checked out, that you can't override that. So just there's a formula on the back end that we can dive through in a moment, but makes it pretty simple for the end user to know that there's something going on there that they can't necessarily use that one. So that's kind of fancy and fun. Otherwise, you're going to be able to go here and check these buttons here. And once you do that, you can see that checkout reports button comes up and is more, it's active. So I'm going to just kind of click through that so you can see that a couple more times. So even if I were to do a different button, it just knows that once one of these are toggled and that it's active, then this button's going to show and allow you to check those out. So let me just click on that. And then if I wanted to, I'd be able to check that report out, or I could check out multiple at a time, and it would run through that workflow as expected. So there's a couple more, icons and things that are on this page doing some calculations here. You'll see that this number changes when I click on the button. It's just saying, it's kind of letting the end user know if you were to have, 15 or even 30 or 40 different reports on this, you're going to get a scroll bar here on the right. And what that's really going to do is, be able to allow you to check out as many as you need to at one time. So if, let's say you need to check out 5 at a time, which may likely be the case sometimes, or maybe it's not, but in either case, it's going to show that number down here. When you're clicking that button, what is exactly happening? How many files am I going to be checking out at a time? So kind of doing a count there, and I'll walk through that query as well. You're going to be able to refresh this. So let's say, I sent this through and I got an error. You can refresh this because let's say somebody else checked it out right before you did and you missed the jump on that. So you can refresh it, get the latest versions of those, and whether something's checked out or not. You can also filter here and just see only the things that are checked out to you. So that's just making it very simple and clear as to which ones are checked out to you, and just really throw that in end users eyesight so that they can really understand what's checked out to them at any given time. It's one of those nice things, nice to have, but not a need to have. Here's a download button. So if I wanted to strictly download that file, I can do that and create a separate local file for that one. I'm going to click back here just so I can go back to another screen and kind of show you the other screen before I dive into the technicals. So again, I checked out some files there. If I were to then want to check a file in, you can come over here. And so this is only going to show the checked out file there. And if I were to click this button and there were to be other files checked out by other folks, it would also show those here, but it wouldn't have this as being active. It would be just like on the other screen, it would be disabled, quote unquote. That's what Power Apps way is saying, that you can't necessarily click on it. It's a disabled button. So you'd be able to see that filtering happen here. And again, that just makes it more pinpointed and end user specific. Here you are, you're able to refresh the documents and get the latest versions of those again. So if I had checked something in or someone else had checked something in since I last refreshed this, that's going to bring in those latest documents. And then again here, if I click that button, here's that active button again, kind of showing me that, hey, there's something going on, and you're now allowed to check in some reports. If you are inclined, you can type in here into the comments and say, this is what I want to have. This is what I have changed in that app since I've last made since I last made my checkout. So you're gonna be able to see that pretty very clean and very quick there. But another button you're going to be able to see here is this X button here. So really what that is you can discard a checkout. So you check something out, I checked out 5 at a time, like I said before, maybe even 10, but I accidentally checked out too many at a time, but I want to go back and just discard my checkouts, not create a new major version on that file specifically. So what I'd be able to do is just come here and then let's say I had the 10 files that I had and I no longer want those checked out and I do not want to save my changes. That's where that discard's going to come in handy. So I'm going to click that button real quick. And then here, that's where you see the mode will pop up and you can see that there's an X button here, there's discard file. So if I were ready, I would click on discard file and then that would, walk through that process on the back end and say, I no longer want that checked out to me and I do not want to save my changes that I've made. So that's to Steve's point earlier. He did talk about that a little bit, just where if you don't want to save anything or if you've made changes that, maybe broke something, this would be a good time to discard that file and go back and make some more minor changes. So I'm gonna hit this X and then that'll give me back my screen. So just kind of going back, it's between these 3 screens that, really all of that action happens. So it's very clean. You can kind of see the white background. It just makes it very, easy to understand what's going on. And then you have these green buttons that really stick out and they're a sizable, buttons so that people can really understand what action should I perform on this screen. And then you kind of see the hover action too, that helps call out, what can happen. Sometimes you see buttons, with rounded corners, or sometimes you see circle buttons, or they blend in too much. But that's where that hover really can help drive that there's an actionable something that's happening there. I'm going to X this out, and I'm going to be able to walk through now, just some of the technicals here. So I'm not sure where everybody's stance is on Power Apps. So I'm going to walk through from kind of beginner into some of the tips that I've learned along the way. So here on these buttons, you can just see that it's just saying navigate to the checked out file screen, or if I were to click on this one, it's going to say navigate to the check-in file screen. There's the cover, that's just a transition. So you can have, there's these 3 different covers, or 4 different type of transition covers, where it goes to the right or to the left, or it uncovers, it recovers, and all that kind of fun stuff. You can also do none at that point too. So if I click back here, there's a couple more that show there, but sometimes I use cover, sometimes I don't, depending on how large the app is. Sometimes when you have a lot of functions and things happening on the app itself, those covers kind of just get in the way. And but otherwise, the transitions can kind of help ease that person into this is a well-built app and that they feel comfortable. It's really about the end user experience when it comes to these apps and how you build this to really form fit the end users that's going to come here. So to do that ourselves, what we did is, are you here too? That's asking a question and it's asking them to click on a button, pretty much making it very direct that the person who's here is here to do 2 things and 2 things only. Check reports out and check reports in. We could have, some more information in there. So if we wanted to check a report in and it'd be a major version or a minor version, or if we wanted to say, are you here to discard a checkout report, I can make a separate screen for that. But really making it as clear as possible to the person who's entering this screen, what those options are. Being very direct. Let me just open that up there. All right, and then so here's the back button, and it's as simple as that. You put back, and then you have a function open and closed parenthesis there, and just basically saying go back to the previous screen. The only way that you can get to the screen is through that front screen, so that's why something like this would work. Otherwise, you could use that navigate function as well, and you would just say navigate back to that home screen. So pretty simple stuff. Here's a gallery. This is going to be one of the most popular items and components that come with Power Apps. I would say one of the most popular, one of the most powerful as well. Reason being is because it's very flexible, and you can turn it into a form. You can turn it into, viewing, records in, an array. But here we're pulling in from a specific data source, and that's called documents. You can see that if I don't hover on it, it says documents there, and that's pulling in from that SharePoint source. And it's the documents library, the documents library that kind of comes with that site. So again, here, then I just have a label with, file name, and you can kind of see the formula there. It's very plain Jane. You have the double quotes to make it into a text. Pretty simple stuff there. But if I click down on this one, you can see that there's text. Let me remove the formatting there, and there we go. Let's see if I can get that up here. Into one line. So checked out to, and you can see that that's going to be some text there, but we have an ampersand here where you're going to be combining text, and you're going to be combining some things that are actually built into pulling those reports in. So when we're pulling in the report, which report is showing? So it's saying this item, and in this item, is it checked out to somebody, yes or no? And if it is, show that display name. So that's why you're seeing that information there. Same thing with modified. So this item dot modified, so it's going to show that specific record and the last time that it was modified with a date and time. Here we're going to see that this item.folder path, and just so I can kind of quickly show you guys, it's kind of like Excel in the sense that, if I were to scroll down on here, you're going to be able to see all the different information that I could just click on, and I would be able to show that information. So we chose to show the information that's on there. We wanted to keep it clean, easy to read, and not too much information for the end user. We don't want them to come here and then feel like overwhelmed. There might be too many things going on, but overall, you can kind of see that it's just very simple. File name, folder path, which folder path is pretty consistent when it comes to the Power BI reports in this specific gallery. So there's something that could be there, or it could be something different if we wanted to, but there's that, and then there's also the file name itself with the extension. So again, to the point that Steve made earlier, there's a couple different extensions that are available here, and we just wanted to make sure that the end user, when they're checking that out, they really understand what that extension is. And then here's that download button. So this item dot link to item, you're just basically launching that in the web browser that you can then download that. So that's just a simple icon. These are all just simple icons here where we're able to put a formula behind them. This filter doesn't mean that it has to actually be filtering on something. I could edit this formula and have the download button be there, and you wouldn't really know the difference unless that on select was being shown somewhere. So pretty straightforward stuff, but it can get overwhelming at certain times, because learning all these individual tweaks and small things that are going on in the app, it becomes a lot of fun. So count rows here, that's going to be counting the number of things that are showing and that are basically toggled to true. So when you're in here and you click on a button, basically just toggling that one to show that active button, if there's going to be more than one that's showing there, so I click on this, that number updated to 2, it's going to be counting the number of those toggles that are equal to 2. I'm sorry, that equal to true that are showing in this gallery. So again, just doing some formula to really calculate that on the go. So that's something that you do want to kind of watch out for. If you have so many different things calculating on one screen at a time, the performance of the app itself can kind of suffer. I've gotten it to where I've had only 20 components or 30 components on a screen, and you start to see the app slow down a little bit. But I've also gotten it to where there's at least 100 components on a screen, and it doesn't slow down at all. So it just depends on what those components are, and how often those are doing refreshes or updates or grabbing API calls or things like that, where it kind of matters on specifically what you're actually doing there. So I'm just going to do a little bit of a time check. I know we're at 12:33, so I just want to make sure that we're cruising along here. So I'm going to go through check-in files real quick, and then we'll start diving through the Power Automate and then how we tie these other components together with Power Apps. So again, this is very similar to the other screen. A lot of the same components that were reused. I basically just made actually a duplicate of this checkout file screen, and then I was able to come in here and then modify, what I wanted to show and how I wanted those action items to basically be prepared before being thrown into a Power Automate. So again, here's that discard button. So there's a couple things that you see in here. So one, which is initially we had the workflow just kicking off right as we click that button, and it didn't give you a second chance. It just, you clicked it and it went, which that's great if you're coming in here and you have a specific reason that you're doing that. However, when there's something that's significant like that, so if you made some major changes, you spent a lot of time on this, and then you accidentally click on discard and it just cruised right through it, that's when you're going to maybe run into an issue where you accidentally discarded some changes where you want to keep that stuff. So this is where we thought a modal would make the most sense for an end user, where, let me just open that up. So when we click on that button, this is where we're like, are you sure that you want to discard the changes that you made? When you discard this, you cannot get that information back. And we could even add that as a disclaimer somewhere to really make sure, because we'll get calls for just being part of IT or being part of that support plan, where they need somebody to come help out because they accidentally made some type of issue or report go away on accident. This is a good spot for that, because you accidentally click a button, it takes away your changes, and then there's really nothing that anybody can do to get that stuff back. So giving them that second chance, I think, makes the most sense here, and having that modal pop up. Let's walk through what that looks like real quick. So I'm going to turn on, let's see here, a button here. Actually, there's actually a different one here that I'm going to go through. I'm going to quickly go through our checkout reports, and I'm going to click play just so we can preview this. I'm going to check out sales overview, and you'll kind of see what happens. I'm going to click on that, and here's the fun stuff that I have going on in the app. We'll give it about 4 seconds, and then that goes away, and then you'll see that officially is checked out to me. The reason why you saw those couple of things pop up for a certain amount of time, let's walk through what that looks like. The reason why I had that modal pop up, again, same reason as on the check-in file screen, is that this is a modal pop up though to allow the back end and the workflow to do its job before the end user would re-engage with the Power App. So that's what we're going to look at now, is another reason why you would be using a modal. So what I have is a button here that is hidden intentionally, so that end users do not see that. But when an admin wants to come in and be able to have some fun with that modal, or be able to adjust what that looks like, you can then click on this button. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the button, and it's going to activate that modal. So what that's doing is faking, really, and allowing that modal to pop through without that workflow running. So typically, what this looks like is, this is going to run on a timer, and it's going to run for 4 seconds, and then at the end of that 4 seconds, once that workflow is done, that it refreshes the database. So it's kind of doing all these actions packaged up into one quick modal, where it just kind of shows the end user, hey, something's happening. Just please wait patiently for a second. It's doing what it's got to do, and then at the end, it just goes away, letting them know that, hey, we refreshed that gallery, basically updating those documents, and that workflow is completed. So that's why you see this modal here. It's a little bit of a different reason than the other screen, but it makes it pretty simple that they can see that something's happening. This isn't something that I, again, would do for a corporate setting where we have Homer just running around in circles and not stopping, but also the loading sign here. But just making it a little bit more fun. So if it is more of an informal app that you're building, it can be as fun as being able to have something like this that's out there. There's nothing stopping us from having a little bit of fun in the middle of our workday. If this app was more straightforward, and it was for like the C-suite, and you were getting approvals and things like that, you probably don't want to put this in front of them. But if this is something between you and your team, have some fun, throw some GIFs out there. That's what this is. So if I click on that, you can kind of see what this is called. This image is called loading, and this image is called Simpsons. And you're able to literally throw this image right on there. And then what I have is a query basically saying, only show this at a certain time. So when that start timer is true, please show this. And then when it's false, then it's going to go away. So we have a timer on the background that's really running that job to make sure that it's only showing for a small amount of time, and while that workflow is running. So again, that's just some fun stuff that you can do with the app, and make it your own personalized app, and especially if you're doing it amongst a team. So I'm on the productivity and collaboration team. This is certainly something that I would 100% do if I were building an app for them. So it's good to have fun during the day. So let's keep it that way. All right, so and that's actually how I got this image here as well. I just took a screenshot, saved it as what it was, didn't change the name on it, as you can tell. So you can kind of have these really ugly names that are up there, but I'd probably advise that you change the name before you bring it in. But again, you can simply see that there's some more different media that I have out there as well. So pretty straightforward stuff, but very powerful. So when you start to mix, like, when you mix the Power BI reports, you mix Power Apps, you're mixing, Power Automate and SharePoint, it doesn't have to be overly complex. Some of the stuff that you saw here today is it can be complex, and certainly we could take this in another direction where it's more complex than what you see here today, but we wanted to keep it as simple as possible so that, as we package this up and kind of supply this out, this is going to be something that is just a base framework for somebody or a company to use that you guys can certainly take it in your own direction, and then it's just a baseline. It's not something that's going to be overly complex, and then you'd have to untwist and turn things to make work. So that's kind of what we're looking at there. Let's quickly look at this check-in files test. You can kind of see that there's the timer. There's some formulas with some exclamation points, just saying that there are warnings. You can see that there's an item here that's showing like the first of that gallery, and then there's an error. The reason why I'm pointing all these things out is because I literally just made a duplicate screen here where I grabbed the screen, I turned it into a test version of it, and I was able to make modifications here before kind of bringing it back into where I would want the end user to see. As of right now, nobody can see this check-in file screen unless you're on this edit admin mode here on the back end, because there's no way to navigate to that as an end user right now. So I can keep that on the back end and use it as more of like an admin panel and testing version for myself, so that when I'm making modifications, it doesn't get published out or saved out to something that I would show the end user right away. This is something that I can use personally, that I can kind of walk through those testing motions and not affect the end user or the major app version. All right, so let's quickly go over what these different workflows look like. So we're going to go through the Power BI versioning, and that's going to be the checkout versioning. So I clicked on the edit icon here, and we're going to wait for it to load. I'm just going to expand all of these so we can see all of these at one time. All right, so now you can see Power Apps, and basically what that's saying is Power Apps is going to initiate the start of this flow. There's a small handful of triggers. The one that I used for this flow specifically is going to be Power Apps. So Power Apps is going to be the one that's going to be kicking this flow off. And so actually I'll show you what that looks like here by clicking on this button, not that one, this one. And so within there, you can see that there's a for all, and it's basically saying grab the items and start that workflow by checking those in. So there's more information in there that gets kind of complex. Basically just saying, which one do we want to check in? What are the comments that we have out there? And then is this going to be discarding, yes or no? Basically saying, no, do not discard this file here. We want to check it in. So let me show you what that looks like here. Actually, this is going to be the checkout version, but we'll quickly go through checkout and then we'll go back to check-in. So as we're checking things out, you can see here, this is going to be trigger body, parentheses, and then checkout file ID. Really what that's saying is that we're getting that information from Power Apps. You're going to see this icon there, and you're going to see that it says trigger body. So those are two identifiers to me that this is pulling information from Power Apps. So you are able to pass information from Power Apps into Power Automate. And you can actually pass that information right back to Power Apps if you wanted to. And that's actually a solution that I've built for other companies where they need some more of that back end logistical type of thing happening with data, and then they need to send it right back. There's certainly a use case for that. Anyways, so checking out the file, you're going to be able to get that file ID. So basically every file that you bring into SharePoint is going to have a unique identifier. This is just telling you that this is the one I want you to check out. And so that's what you'll see here. If you wanted to have that ID shown, you do this item.id, and I'm just going to quickly change that, and I'll change it back. Steve, don't yell at me. Here's the number of so 141, 42, and 150. That's the ID number of those specific items. Let me just Control Z that so I can go back to what that was. I'm going to scroll down here, auto check-in for testing purposes. So as I was working through this workflow, I was having some problems I was working on. I wanted to automatically recheck that file back in after checking it out. So basically just saying, when it's done doing everything that it's doing, please just discard the checkout. This is for me when I was testing this for an admin. They would just go through and then just be able to say that test is equal to test or 1 equal to 1, whatever you want to do. It just has to equal each other, and then it'll run through this and discard that checkout. So basically just saying that the checked out file then just gets discarded right away. And that's just for me when I was running through that testing and wanting to quickly, not have to go back to the SharePoint site and discard those files. All right, and then we have the copy file. So that's going to be copying the files right over into the spot where actually you're going to be working on the files into the checked out reports folder. And then we want you to check out both of those files, basically just saying like, we have these files, they're checked out now, no one else can edit those. And then basically notifying everybody in the Teams channel that, hey, this person has checked those out. You will not be able to modify those. If you want to talk about, hey, how long are you going to have that file checked out for? That's basically what this is doing, is just prompting that conversation out to the team, letting them know that there's some things that are happening with those files. So pretty straightforward stuff. I'll dive through the other Power Automate pretty quickly here, and then we'll hand it back over to Steve to do a little bit of a walkthrough here. All right, so here is the check-in. Let me just click on edit. All right, so here's the discard, and that's why you saw on that last screen there that there were a number of different files, or I'm sorry, different versions that had gone through basically the gauntlet when we're testing this out. If you were to be discarding this file, this is the workflow that also gets ran, but it goes through this condition. Are you trying to discard this file, yes or no? And if it is yes, then they just discard that file, and you no longer have that file checked out. So if you are checking this file back in and you're saving the properties, you're saving the comments and things like that, that's when you're going to go through on this right side. And so you can see that there's a little bit more complex than the other one, but it's because we're saving those comments. We're now overlaying that file onto the original file. So it's kind of just a two-step process here versus just a one-step process that you saw before. That's why you see a little bit more complex. But overall, I think it's all using the out-of-the-box SharePoint actions. So it's still relatively simple, but you just see a few more actions. But what you're seeing is that it's going to go through, grab that version of the file that was edited, overlay it onto the published files, and then delete that copied file in the report that you edited, so that you don't have two separate files and you're just keeping that published report that is most important. So again, using all out of the box stuff. This is a standard workflow. You're not using premium here. I know that that's always a question. What about licensing? But again, this is just something that can be as simple as we're seeing today. It's all out of the box. You just have to be creative. And I think that's really what we wanted to talk about, is just being creative with these solutions so that you can really, be able to use the power of the Power Platform to your advantage. And that's whether that's at work, or that's in your personal lives, or in your personal teams. That's where you start to see a lot of the great, I guess, outcomes of the Power Platform. So Steve, I know I talked a lot. Anything else that I'm missing that you'd like to dive through before we hand it back to you? Let's see here. Looks like you're on mute, possibly. Let me just.
Yep, here we go.
There we go.
So let's just now have a demo, exactly what we've been talking about here. So thanks, Anthony, for running through that. One thing, I love to use this Power App, this Power Automate, Power BI. Teams is a really great way to kind of get all these together and have a single unified place to have this whole solution. So I'm going to run through how I use this, how we use this in our teams, and how we check out these reports, and just give you an example. So here we can see my Power BI workspace here, so my Power BI exec reports. I have a model, I have two reports coming off this model, right? So one thing to do, really useful, is to separate the Power BI model from the report files. This allows you to build multiple reports to reuse these models. I'm going to send a load of links in the chat at the end, and we're going to look at all this and why to do this and how to do this outside of the scope of this topic, but that's what we've done here. So in my SharePoint, now what I want to do is I want to be able to edit the files that are in the checked out reports, right? I don't want to edit directly these published reports. In fact, I don't want to touch them. I don't want to accidentally delete stuff. These are our reports out there that are live. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on checked out reports. and I'm going to click this sync button here. What that's going to do is that's going to actually sync, and it's going to say, do you want to open my Microsoft OneDrive? I've already synced, but once you click that, this is going to sync it to your local desktop. Remember, we do this on the checked out reports file. What that looks like is that once I have this, this actually opens up, this is my organization, Sunny BI here, and it adds a little network drive here. And then look, we can see Power BI reports, checked out reports. This has now added that to my local computer. This is my computer. It looks like it's just a desktop. I can access this by clicking on this is my Windows Explorer, just going straight to Sunny BI. And then I can see these checked out reports. One thing that's great is that I can see that these have a little lock to them. That means Anthony's actually checked them out. Hopefully he's going to check back in the sales overview report so I can check that in. And this is it, right? I've realized he has checked it out. I want to use it. I say, hey, can you check it back in? It's not going to let me delete these though. It's going to say denied, I can't edit them. That's what checking out does. It locks it to Anthony. We can't both accidentally overwrite each other. So now that that's all synced, as Anthony goes and checks in, discards his checkout or checks in the report again, what I'm going to do.
Let me see if I can do that for you.
So I'm going to go to my Teams, right? So I like to set up Teams channels. This is a great place to have everything located. One thing you can do to Teams, so I have our posts here. These are these posts that was coming from Microsoft Flow, right? We already set it to this channel. It's posting now every time someone checks in, checks out, doing stuff. So it's kind of having this live up to date of what's going on. I can see this, Anthony checked this out and I said, hey, want to use this, let me know when checked in, right? So I'm gonna write him a message and say, hey, I realize you have this checked out. I want to use this. Let me know when you check it in. So that's going to alert him and say that. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to Files, and here I can actually add cloud storage. This is just adding a file system to this team. And obviously I want to use SharePoint. And I'm going to use this. If you haven't done it before, you can use a relevant link. I'm going to say, hey, I want to link up these Power BI exec reports. So I'm going to click next, it's in the documents library. Now this actually syncs up my reports here. So I can see my published reports. I can see if anyone's checked them out. No one's checked anything out. And I can have this all in one location. Now the next step is to actually add the Power App. So I'm going to go, and if you're not using Teams, I'm just clicking this plus here. I'm just going to add tabs. I can add a whole bunch of stuff. Right now, I'm going to add Power Apps. So I'm going to add Power App version control. And again, obviously, you need to make sure everyone in your team has access and can share this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to check some reports out. I see Anthony's messaged me. I think what he's telling me is that he's checked it out, which we'll check it back in, which it looks like he has. So I want to check out my report, my model, and my report file. I'm going to click these two and say 2 items to check out. Now, if I open my OneDrive here, you can see currently it's empty. This is the OneDrive I synced. So as I click this checkout, what's happening is that it's checking these files out. Homer Simpson's running in circles, and it's copying into the checked out report. Now this is copied into that checked out report folder, and I've synced that with my local drive. So now these are away from the original. We're not editing the original, but they're local to me, and I can access them and I can see them on my computer without having to go into SharePoint. So I can just open them up. Now, I'm going to open the model. I'm going to show you a good tool, which I created before, called the Hot Swap Connections. It's a little bonus here. I'm going to send you a link. We're not going into it too much. But what I can do is if I open my model and go to external tools, you can download this from the Business Ops download on powerbi.tips. I'll send you the link. It'll be in the, if you're watching this on YouTube, it'll be down below, or I'll send it in the chat if you're watching this live. We can hot swap connections. what I can actually do, it gives us a bunch of options. Please watch the video if you're unfamiliar with this tool and don't know how to use it. I'm overwriting connect my report. So now what I've done is previously my Power BI report was still linked up to the published version in the cloud, in the service. I basically now taken everything local, and I have connected my report to my other reports. So these reports now are live connected to each other. Again, I'll send you the link. If you're unfamiliar with this tool or not sure what hot swap connections does, please check the link. But essentially what I've got is I can now edit. As we can see, we're not connected to the service. We're actually connected this report to the other local report. Everything's local here now on my machine. If I mess up, I'm not touching anything in the service. I'm not touching anything in the cloud. It's fine. I can just say, hey, I messed this up. Let's start again. Let's discard everything. But I can make my edits. What I do is I'll make my edits. I'll save them. I'll reconnect my report back to the cloud service. And once I'm happy, I'll go back, say, hey, I want to check my reports in. So I'm going to check in, I'm just going to check in both of them. And this is where we can be really detailed and say exactly what we did. You know, we want to give a step-by-step on what did we change, why did we change it. If you use a DevOps or something like that, where you have tasks or a backlog of changes to make, link it up in these comments. You could, if you're really good at Power Automate, you can actually bring in DevOps board and link it directly to tasks and have tasks to pick, something like that. Very, very advanced. If not, just simply if there's a task out there, your boss has given you a task, make sure you know why you're doing it, what you did, just detail everything out. So, you know, I can say I changed this, changed X from, you know, task 1 to 5. This is a common thing I would type in the comments. You know, this is from my DevOps board. Someone's giving me a task. Give it a number so we know what changes relate. And again, we're going to check in these reports. Give it a second, just refresh. And it takes a few seconds because it has to copy these files out. But we can see it's going along here in my SharePoint. And then in my publish reports, this other one's taking a bit longer because it's a bit bigger. But once it's doing that, I'm going to go to my version history. And, you know, here's my backlog of things I've done. Every change I've made is kept up to date. It's kept there. Say I realize that, oh, task 125, that was for the wrong report. I've done it completely wrong. You know, I've been an idiot. Here again, I can simply go back and I can just restore, and it's going to restore back to the old version and just undo everything I've just done and undo what I've messed it up. It actually creates a new version, right? So you still have those changes. It doesn't actually delete anything. That's the beauty of it. Every change is logged. We have a number. We can reference this number when we're saying about the changes. So the last thing we want to show is that, you know, in our Power BI workspace, one thing we can do as well is we can actually go to workspace settings. Make sure you have an upgraded workspace. You should always be using upgraded workspaces. Down to the advanced, we can actually set a workspace OneDrive here. How it actually works is that it will give an email address to the OneDrive, the SharePoint site you set, and it just takes the spaces out. So this is going to Power BI exec reports. So once I start typing that, Power BI exec reports, and I can save this. And now, you know, I can even access, I can go to files from the Power BI, and it's linked this Power BI to my OneDrive. So pretty awesome there. Everything in this Teams, and again, you know, we can add more stuff here. We can add a wiki to the report. We can add documentation, everything like that. Now, there's been a lot of comments and good comments on about kind of file size. You know, what should you do? How should you use this? I recommend this is going to be sort of smaller reports, right? Probably not your huge models. Definitely more on a report on the visualizations than the models. There are some amazing tools called the ALM Toolkit and Tabular Editor. I'm going to post in the links, a bit more advanced, but they're great for source control on model files. Model files are different because they just contain the data model. They don't contain the visuals and the data behind it. This allows you to actually do code checks in, allows you to check in your code, to check in changes and change logs. If you're not quite that advanced, I will just give you a very quick, because we have 1 minute left, super overview of the ALML toolkit. It writes all this for you if you want to make a history of changes and you're working on model files. Simply what you can do is you want to save your model as a PBIT. Just say AL. So immediately when you open, we save a copy to compare it to. I might just make a new measure. I've made a change to my model file. I put a new one in. I'm going to go to the external tools. I'm going to go to the AML toolkit. It's now linked to this file. I'm going to click File, and now I want to compare it to the original PBIT that I saved before I made my edits. I'm going to open up, and please watch the video on this. I'll include the link. I'm simply going to click Report Differences. What this is going to do is this is now going to open an Excel sheet. And again, this only works with model files. And it says the status, I want to say, I don't want anything that's the same. But now it gives me everything that's changed. And look, you see measure, test, this is added, this is new. This is a great way, and you can save all these files as logs and history of logs. Different ways to really control and show what has changed. So awesome. I think that wraps up, the main presentation there. Yeah. Really got close to the time. We will be here for another kind of 15 minutes as we talk and as I'm just posting the links now.
Sure. Yeah, so I'll share my screen again. So that's okay. I'll keep you front and center though, don't you worry. There we go. All right, so we're back to the demo, and I know that you have one more slide to go through here. Just very quickly, if you want to run through this at a high level, and we can then leave it open for questions on the slide if anybody has any.
So what we haven't really talked about is deployment and deployment pipelines. And that was, this is very version control. They have deployment pipelines in Power BI. I recommend you checking it out. It's a premium only feature. It sounds like they're making some updates and this kind of stuff, so we're not going too in depth here. But what I would recommend is we have the workspace that we're publishing to from this publish reports. We then copy, which is that top left box. We then copy to our local machine to edit. That's where we have this Power App, these two lines pointing up and down. That's us checking them out, doing the local edit, checking them back in. This probably shouldn't be the workspace that your end customers see. At the minimum, you would want this to be what I like to call a QA workspace. Is that we've made our edits, we check them back in. It's then tested and then confirmed by other people. This could be yourself or it could be other people. Once we're happy, we can then copy the reports from the QA workspace to the production workspace. And this is the one where it's live. So this is only one way. We're posting from QA to the production. We're not taking back. And this is really a good way of seeing, keeping this version control and making sure, even though we have this local edit and publishing, we then have some time to test before we give it to the end customers. This could be an approval process. This could be the same thing, another flow where it copies from one folder to another. So really just deployments are a big task, and they already have deployment pipelines in Power BI. So it's a good idea to check that out. With premium per user coming, we're going to be able to purchase premium on a per user basis soon. No one knows the price point yet.
We can talk about licensing. Oh, that gets into
they've announced that. There's no
price
out. So we'll see what that is. But these things are coming into Power BI, so I would use their built-in functionality.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you, Steve. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go on to the next slide here. Of course, we got a little bit of wrap up. Be on the lookout for the next Milwaukee Power Platform user group. That is coming up. We already have that planned, and that's something that we'll be posting actually pretty close after this. But we have an MVP that's going to be speaking on the Power Platform topic, and we really look forward to him coming and being able to provide some of his expertise and talking about. I guess he's been an MVP now for a couple years, and just being able to really walk through that in the sense that he's taken those steps to and has devoted a lot of his free time to the community. And I think it'll be fun to walk through that with what he's done in the past, and then also what he's kind of doing today. So looking forward to that. Other than that, join our Milwaukee Power Platform user group. Stay connected. That's the easiest way is joining this group and being able to just get those notifications and be able to stay on top of our meetings. And so we typically have been doing them on Mondays, and I think we'll stay that way. The next one I believe is scheduled for a Monday, but sometimes and things may change over the next month. But overall, if you guys have an idea of who you'd want to speak, or if you want to come up and speak and show things that you've been building or things that somebody else has been building that you're a part of, that would be a really good way to stay involved with the community, not only from with your company and being able to invite them to that meeting, but also then everybody else gets to see the work that you've been doing too. So it's a really fun time that we can spend looking through that stuff together. And Steve and I are happy to host somebody else speaking too. So feel free to speak up and let us know that there's an opportunity that you'd like to share. So with that, then we'll kind of leave the door open for anybody to write in questions, comments, and kind of go that route. I think Steve and I will just chat until about 1:10, 1:15, and leave the door open if anybody has any questions or comments. All right, Steve, did you is the comments, are they still on? Oh, looks like you're on mute too.
So yeah, the comments are closed. We're now open. So
okay,
please,
they're back on. Cool.
Yep. Please, if you have any questions, now's the time.
Awesome. Yeah, and I think part of the user group that one of the things that we want, with this user group is it to be formal in the sense that hey, we have things lined up and that we have there's a point to why people are getting together, but also informal in the sense that we can still have those conversations. It doesn't have to be a scripted question or things of that nature. We just want to be here for the community and work through that together as a group. So feel free to really just put your thinking cap on and toss anything over the wall, and we'll do our best to answer you. And if we don't have an answer now, we can always take some time after the meeting to get back to you. Awesome. Let's see. Do we have any questions that we wanted to kind of talk about at all, Steve? Anything that was out there? I know that you mentioned what are the file limits and the group limits. So there's 25 terabytes when it comes to a SharePoint site, and then there's the 100 gigabyte file limit. So I know that you don't typically meet those limits, and it's kind of funny that there is a cap on it even. But yeah, so I think.
Yeah, and again, I think that's a point people have asked, and we want to reiterate here. I said this isn't the golden solution for everyone. It's very much kind of what's your company's already, do they have something in place? If not, some solutions better than none. Again, this works better with those report files, the PBIX files. There are tools, if you look at the links, AML Toolkit, Tabular editor with DevOps, to kind of integrate code and to do the model, especially when you get enterprise level models, which I've seen are absolutely massive, gigabytes and gigabytes. Yeah. That might be hard to move files around. Most people working at medium-sized enterprises doesn't really happen as much. So this is a very good solution for that.
Yeah, one other thing that I was thinking about too is there's so let's just say we have this Power Apps, we have the Power Automate, and we have SharePoint and Teams, all that stuff involved. If you weren't using it necessarily for Power BI reports, you were using it for, let's say, more of a policies and procedures type of thing, I mean, I could see the solution, applying to more than just Power BI reports and being able to, kind of serve up, these major and minor versions and discarding checkouts and check-ins. I think that, that's also, something else that would be a great use case is policies and procedures. I'm trying to think what else, maybe even some type of like articles that would be out there, from marketing, things like that, where we can really drive like other parts of the business with checking in and checking out, because that's a major feature in SharePoint too. That's my SharePoint plug.
Yeah, again, we use Power BI files here, because it's great to link them, and you can link the Power BI workspaces all in one, and you can even add it to the teams, right, and see their end report. But yeah, as I said, I think I mentioned this briefly at the beginning. It could be Excel workbooks, it could be anything, right? This is a binary file like this file where you can't necessarily take apart little bits of the code and work on it individually. A Power BI report, you need to open it, you need to add the graphs. So anything like that definitely is great for this solution, and it's very good. We just had a question through. Has this session been recorded and it will be available for reference later? From Archer, definitely yes, it will be. We have a YouTube. It's the Milwaukee Power Platform group. But join our LinkedIn group and we will post everything there. We'll post some blogs as well, as we tend to get the templates and anything we have, or any blogs and templates. We hope to release everything we've done here for you guys to use and modify. And feel free to use them. So, yep, join the group is the message there, because we'll have everything out there.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a good idea. And then also, one thing I wanted to touch on too is with the Power BI reports, I thought it was really cool that you were able to basically sync up Power BI with like a SharePoint site. So whether that's a group or a Teams, like we showed today, an existing SharePoint site, whether it's classic or a modern, you're able to really dive in and make those, those two products really feel like one. I thought that was a really cool, exciting part that you were able to show me about Power BI.
For sure, yeah, and it works. You can have it kind of one-click deployment here, where we get the SharePoint, and it's, as you say, everything's there. It links up to the reports, so we're no longer having to necessarily publish our reports using that publish button. But we can actually link it up to the SharePoint files directly, and I think that would be a really great way, for future research if anyone wants to learn some more. Look at that, and it just kind of anything which you can take out clicks, take out steps, really helps. It's amazing, but 3 or 4 clicks fewer means 3 or 4 clicks less that you can't miss. Even something small like that. So every little bit helps in terms of getting speed, one-click deployment.
Yep, that's a really good point. And I think you being able to show that very quickly in Power BI and going through that, so I'd probably watch that in slow motion, where you'd probably watch some of my Power Automate stuff or Power App stuff in slow motion, just because it's where do you live every day, or are you opening these products and working with the settings every day, things like that, where it feels more natural. Like myself, when I was saying this is more of an easy workflow compared to the complex ones, but it just depends on where you're starting and how those are going to really get a jump start into making something easy, or maybe everything is hard at this point because you're newer. But in either case, yeah, it's certainly it's one of those fun things that you can dive into and keeps us active. I would say it keeps us young. There's things that are always evolving, and we try to evolve with those products. They put out these new actions in Power Automate, or these new components in Power Apps where you can streamline some of those actions too. So just like you said, where let's have a single action versus possibly having multiple. There's those small things that you can dive into, new components, new actions. It's fun stuff. Yeah,
awesome. Well, I think with that said, I think thank you everyone for joining, and those who are still here and been here for over an hour. So I really appreciate. We saw quite a few people still hanging out. Definitely join the group. We will announce as more and see the following updates. We will also, any blogs, any code we use and templates, and the YouTube will be available if you want to rewatch this later. So we'll publish all that in the LinkedIn group. Best place to keep up to date.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Steve.
Thanks, guys.
See you guys.